or recording, because we're not actually going to stream this.
There it is.
Let everyone know you're being recorded. Great.
Got it. All right.
All right, terrific. So it's live now.
Perfect.
Or recorded.
So as far as kind of some of the things that we wanted to talk about today, I know you've been really, really busy and it's a new year. I know everyone's getting behind that new year, new me thing, but there are quite a bit of changes on both of our ends, and I know I'm excited to talk about them, but let's talk a little bit about you first. What have you been up to? What are some of the new ventures that you've got coming in that you're able to talk about, Charles?
Great question, Maggie. So there are some new things that we're doing. We've got the Horizon Summit in 2024. So we've got one in June and one in November. Really excited about that. Just got back from CES. That was an amazing venture. That was a week out in Vegas, so you can't get any better than that, where it's literally freezing in Vegas, which is kind of ironic, but it was beautiful nonetheless. So a lot of great new, interesting things in tech. Got to meet some additional investors, and I got to see some cool new gadgets.
Awesome.
But I know I've got an interesting thing, but let's talk a little bit more about you. I know you've got 2 new positions that you're starting, in addition to a couple of new podcasts. Please tell us more about that. I think our audience really wants to hear about what you've got going.
I do. And of course, this is when my alerts start going off and my dog just woke up from his nap. So we're just going to roll with the punch. Oddly enough, both of my positions are starting today. Aside from other things that I've got going on. The first one, I have just accepted a part-time role as Chief Strategy Officer for a research firm, cybersecurity research firm that provides strategic solutions called CRISP, and they're based out of the Virginia, DC, Maryland market. Really excited. I'm partnering with Arnold Webster, who is the CEO and founder, and we've got so many awesome things coming up that we're developing that I'm really excited to share with my portfolio and everyone in my portfolios, because it's gonna go global, and we're really happy with the work that we've been producing. We've been working a lot of hours. So that's the first one. The second one, I have also just accepted a role full-time VP of sales with TechFides out of technically McKinney, Texas, Dallas, Texas area under Jacques Jean, our CEO and founder. And, it's really interesting talking about both of these positions right now. We're recording this on Martin Luther King Day, and both of these gentlemen are African-American, and each one of their stories are just, they're so amazing, and they're both very inspiring. And I just feel really honored to be a part of their teams. Jacques with TechFides, the entire company, all of us are basically previously came out of the corporate arena, and we wanted to do brand new innovations and a lot of IT strategy, white glove service. And primarily we had started in the United States, and now we're really expanding on a global level. We've got a very big project coming in, and we are building out heavily with the government as well. So on top of that, I'm looking to meet with investors in many different facets with both of these opportunities, because the partnerships that we're creating across the board are doing everything from startup companies. I've worked with a lot of startup owners that are looking for investment, or that have people that they're trying to leverage capital and things of this network matter. But yeah, those are really great that we've got coming in. And as far as TechFides goes, I'm going to be helping build out the U.S. government sector as well. With business development and sales, I'll have my own team under me, and I'm really excited. So those are the 2 biggest things that I've got coming in, and they both start today. So happy 2024.
Happy 2024. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah. That a VP of sales is definitely a challenging role. Now, just out of curiosity, I do know that there are some startups and folks that are looking, that watch our channel, just to see, are you hiring? Are you going to be hiring and building out any of your teams, or you're walking into a pre-existing team? How's that looking for you?
I will be building a team, having a team under me. And, it's really interesting. I had someone ask me the question. They said, well, what kind of people are you looking for? And I have about 14 years of executive headhunting experience, and I did C-suite, board of directors, every industry, all the way up from very entry level people straight out of college or even no experience. So having that recruiting experience and building a team, I'm not necessarily looking for that cookie cutter person. I want the it factor. And what I mean by that is people who don't give up, people who have a passion for people, people who are really creative and think outside of the box and that bring solutions that maybe I might not see or can see a blind spot of mine, or obviously proven success is always great too to have that with us. But our team at TechFides, it's a very unique, I don't want to say this word because whatever, we're kind of woke in a sense. And what I mean by that is it's not about what corporate America would normally think of in how we operate. It's truly about the people and the mission, creating things that have never been done, offering up solutions that others haven't provided or thought of or brought to the table. And it's really interesting because every single person on the team, when I first interviewed with Jacques, I met with every person on the team individually and really got to know them and hear their stories. And that's what made me want to choose to work with them. And a lot of other companies, even to this day, are still asking a list of 20 questions, the basic interview questions, or their panel interviews. Something that I always say is a lot of times we had to coach our clients on how to interview if they would hire us as a recruiter, because the client didn't really know how to get the candidate interested when it was a hot market. If a candidate's interviewing at 5 different companies, you've got competition and they could receive multiple offers and you could lose that top candidate of yours. So I'll go on. I don't want to get on a whole recruiting tangent, but yes, building a team. I'm open to any and everybody that just maybe fits what I just described. So yeah, very excited.
Well, that's good to know. There's a lot of people talk about job descriptions, and job descriptions are always a cookie cutter that doesn't always fit the mold of what they really wanted, but it's what HR might have put out. So it's always good to have that clarification so people really understand what you're looking for. So you have their expectations already preset. So people who might apply that might see this will already know what the expectations are. So it's a good way to level set, because sometimes when you look at like an HR requisition or something like that, they're very obscure or oblique, or they just copy and paste somebody else's job description, which doesn't even correspond to the actual job and the duties that are actually required or needed.
Yep.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah,
now, I know that you're welcome. And I definitely appreciate the highlight there for what you're looking for. Now, switching gears back from TechFides into CRISP, where you're the chief strategy officer, you want to talk a little bit about that? What you might be doing there?
There's a lot I'm not able to discuss because of NDAs and whatnot. We're working with very high level government, but also startup companies, small business in particular. A lot of the companies that I work with, a lot of the partners that I'm collaborating with are small businesses, veteran owned, and a lot of universities as well. There's a lot of education that goes into the research that we're doing. And so I'm definitely looking to partner with universities that are looking to grow any of their IT or cybersecurity departments. The biggest areas that we are building out in are AI, quantum, blockchain. Oh, he's going to kill me because now I'm getting spacing. There's so much we're covering. All of it, AI, quantum, blockchain, cybersecurity, all of these types of topics. And we're working with the best of the best. I mean, one of our partners that we're so excited to partner with is actually Virginia Commonwealth, working with Dr. Milos Manik, who is overseeing pretty much the entire state of Virginia on their cybersecurity. They've got an amazing $15 million supercomputer they just got this year. We're going to have access to their labs. That's one of our partners. And building those types of relationships, being able to offer brand new solutions for workshops, for trainings, for event planning. That alone, do you know how hard it is to get it? Look at your background. I'm not even going to say that. It's very hard to get speakers. Hit perfect segue. But to bring people in, I mean, another organization I'm going to talk about, we're looking for a Chat GPT SME, and that'll be on February 21st. Yeah, we have a lot of the SMEs, but guess what? Yourself included, they don't have time. They're so backed up. We're at a 3.5 million deficit on cybersecurity professionals. So even trying to get these people to make the time. That's why even you and I recording this, we're like, okay, we got 20 things to cover. Let's take this hour and get everything in. It is what it is. And one of the things I love about this industry, and not to go off on a tangent, but I love how organic some of the things we work on can be, because we don't have the time, so to speak, but that's the beauty in it. That's where you get that real meat and potatoes and conversations. And so, but yes, with crisp. We are really working with a lot of different agencies as well, developing new programs, methodologies, bringing in new partners. And, I'll save this tangent for another day. I wish we'd get met with a little bit more open-mindedness instead of, we want you to go innovate. You can't do that. Because those are some of the blockages that we're working on. And Arnold would tell you we have had hours and hours of conversation, and that's honestly what I feel helped me get this role as Chief Strategy Officer, because maybe I'm just a slightly little crazed in the head, but I say what I think and I mean what I say, and it's very genuine. And so I really am excited about that, because I'm not out here drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm not a cookie cutter performer. And so I feel that that's something a lot of these agencies and professionals and officials, military, I'm an uber military fan. I just want to kind of raise the bar a little bit on both ends. And I'm really excited about that position. So we've got a lot of great things. So anyone out there listening to this, if you are partnered with major universities across the United States, I have full transparency. I'm definitely looking for global readiness in that regard as well. My God, I'm meeting with a virtual university that they help train producers and directors for movies. And the people that started it were actual people that worked on Avatar and Lord of the Rings. I'm meeting so many cool people, and it's just been a really great journey. So universities, any type of governmental officials wanting to add to their portfolio or investment with regards to research on cybersecurity, like I said, AI, blockchain, quantum, a lot of those types of things, please contact me, because I'd love to meet with you.
You can really see your passion shine through.
I'm such a nerd. Thank you.
I think we both are. It's like probably why we get along. But I mean, you can really see your passion shine through by how much you actually deeply love these two new jobs and these two new careers.
I do.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's always great.
And this is something I always talk about. I meet people and you can just tell they're so burned out because they're overworked. And, working with different generations, we can really take that opportunity to learn from one another. Because believe me, there's times I'll go into meetings and I'm a spitfire and they're like, settle down, Maggie. And I need that, and I'm open to that constructive feedback. But at the same time, there's times where I walk into, a still pond, so to speak, with meetings, and I'm like, you guys are boring me. And I will say things like this in the meeting. I'm like, I can't believe I still have a job. But I'll be like, you guys, you're expecting me to go sell what we're talking about now to students that are going to learn this and bring into our industry. Meanwhile, you're putting me to sleep. If you're putting me to sleep, how am I going to get inspired to go sell this? And I can say that.
How can you inspire the other people to listen?
Correct.
If you're not paying attention, or if you're tired, or it's boring. Like I was falling asleep watching football in the casino while I was in Vegas. I'm like, man, this is so boring. But they're watching. We're talking about replays, by the way. We're not talking about live football. But it's like you already know what's going to happen, so you're watching a replay. So I just segue into that with what you're saying is like, if you already know what the end result is, and you don't see anything that's different, or you don't perceive anything being different, then it doesn't seem to be very exciting. It sounds like a lot with what you're doing today is actually completely different. You've unhinged a lot of the different barriers that most people have. I think that's why you get so passionate about what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, I think that really leads into the podcast that you guys are going to start soon.
Yes, and it is still so early in the making, but I want to do this as like a prequel to the prequel to the first initial marketing, but that's how I roll. So we don't even have a title for it just yet. And I have to be careful how I word this, but I am so proud of this organization and the team, Cesar Nadar with Cyberbytes Foundation out of Stafford, Virginia. They are considered the Quantico Cyber Tech Hub. And over the last year, I have built a great partnership with them. They're a nonprofit, and what they bring to the table is just, I've seen similar organizations. Let me set this up, okay? Their facility reminds me of the movie The X-Men, and I'll just leave that there. Fish. But it's they've got 3 different levels, and so the first level is and I had to take notes here because we're covering so much, so I'm so sorry, Cesar, don't judge me. Is their Cyberbytes Academy. the director that's overseeing that, Dr. White, he and the team have done such a great job with the certifications that they're offering, the workshops. They bring local community kids all the way through the military, on-prem. They do tons of events there, and they're trying to educate the public at large. Now, obviously, that's mainly in the state of Virginia on a local presence, but we're really building out on a virtual level too. And when I mentioned that Chat GPT speaker, that's one of the events that it was actually Cyberbytes Foundation that's doing that. They bring in these SMEs that talk about things from just a much higher level, the best of the best. And I just really love their involvement and how innovative they are. They're very innovative. And Caesar himself, he's a former Marine, so a lot of ties to the Marines there, and obviously other agencies. But then on the second floor, they have their American Cyber League. And I just think this is so brilliant. It's a floor of labs in many different categories. And I'm certainly not going to say them all here because that comes for our next episode, Charles. But they have members, partners, and several other options where anybody from product development to if you wanted to have a podcast or do some type of virtual or augmented reality, they've got a studio there that they can do these projects out of. They've got many different labs and organizations that have got memberships with the American Cyber League, and they operate there on-prem. So they're building that out. And then again, the Cyber Tech Hub for Quantico. So there's just a lot of different facets that are really unique with that. And again, the team is, that's something I'm going to toot my own horn here, and yourself included when I say this. I only put the best of the best in my portfolio. And that sounds snobby, but I don't mean it that way. It's about the it factor I've been talking about. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care about your title. I don't care about any of that, brouhaha. I care about the drive and the quality. And when I see that, those are the people that I want to work with. And so every single organization and event that I'm talking about here today, they've got that factor. That's what puts us all above the rest of our competitors. And I like to compete and I like to win. And I'm not afraid to say that to my competition face to face. And hey, let's go. We've even talked about doing tug of war events and the smack talking that we all do together. It's so much fun. So that's the new podcast will be for the Cyberbytes Foundation. I am going to be the host and the producer for the virtual for sure, and then helping also build out the on-prem episodes that we'll be recording. And I'm just so stoked. So that's the latest with that podcast. The other thing I would be remiss to talk about is a company called Arcstone Global Securities. And this partnership came from a previous partnership with another organization, but this company has just basically launched in the last couple of months here. Now, they're based primarily out of Canada and the United States, particularly New York, and they are a financial services firm. And I'm going to pull up their website because I want to be sure, especially with your network, that I promote this appropriately for them. I'm also helping produce and secure guests for their podcast. So, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyone listening to this, if you would like to get in touch with Charles and get an intro, let's talk. But with regards to Arcstone, so they do security and investments, catering to both private and public issuers. They present comprehensive product range, including crowdfunding, merger and acquisition advisory, and debt structuring raising, catering specifically to companies operating within the $20 million to $1 billion range. And their industry expertise, and I'm going to name quite a few here, but this just gives you the idea, the breadth of their experience. I'm so blown away with their team as well. And if I remember right, they said their database already included 100,000 plus investors in it. And their areas of expertise and looking to build out include blockchain, clean technology, consumer packaged goods, crypto, electric vehicles, fintech, life sciences, psychedelics, space and adjacent verticals, technology, transportation, and Web3. Okay, there. I said it properly, Jack. Hope I made you proud.
I don't know. Psychedelics sound pretty cool. I don't know. I don't know what that really means, but
I will tell
great.
you. So they are really growing out in the cannabis industry, and they are promoting products that have not really hit the market yet. And they're also doing things that I just thought were, from a human services standpoint alone, take the healthcare out of it, no offense, one of the organizations that they are promoting, that's a current client of theirs, has come up with testing strips for fentanyl. So, for instance, if a sheriff's office or a police force wanted to have these strips and they have reason to believe that someone that they have, pulled over or whatnot is under that substance, they can pull the strip right there, do the test, and know immediately if that person's under the influence of fentanyl. Things of this nature. They're just developing and innovating amazing things. And so that's what that speaks to with the psychedelics and some of those terms.
That's pretty neat. I know that we have that stuff for a lot of the other illicit drugs, but I didn't know that we had something for fentanyl. That must be something new.
Well, I'll tell you, 170 people die a day from fentanyl in the United States. And when you think about that, that's a 737. So why isn't it being on the news? Imagine a 737 plane crashes every day with 170 people. You think they'd talk about that on the news, but fentanyl doesn't get talked about. It's a huge pandemic, and I'm not even going to go down that whole road, but I'm really big on advocacy for addiction and counseling and all of that. And so that was something else that intrigued me about this organization, is just some of the things that they're creating and bringing from an innovation standpoint.
Excellent. Well, I definitely appreciate that. That sounds like it's an amazing product.
Mm-hmm.
One of which I actually will go look at separately. I took a note.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about you. I've done a lot of talking. I am so excited. I'm helping you bring people to your Horizon Summit. Tell us a little bit about this. Who are the people that you would love to have invited, speakers, and a little bit about the event itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Horizon Summit really consists of 5 separate tracks. So we're going to have an AI, cybersecurity, fintech, a marketing track, and then an investment track at the very end. So there's really 5 tracks built out into one summit, but it'll be different. It's a pretty big space. It's the convention center at the Four Seasons on Oahu, Hawaii, of course. It's where it makes it the easiest for everybody to go and take their families. So we're obviously having AI, so that's a big topic. So we're having AI. Meta's one of our sponsors for that. We've got the cybersecurity. So we've got a lot of cybersecurity companies starting to come in, and then we've got some of the fintech. So basically financial technologies that are there. And then all of the other marketing tracks, which I'm not actually taking part in those. Those are done by a separate team. So I can't speak to those. But the investment side, I'm also taking part in. That's actually kind of fun. There'll be some people doing pitch sessions and fundraising, etc. That'll be there. So it'll be something nice and something unique. I'm kind of excited. I'm looking forward to it. It's always a fun time.
Yeah, and it's Oahu, Hawaii too. That doesn't hurt. And oddly enough, I think we accidentally did this the last time we recorded. I feel like I match your background with my yellow and black and your yellow and black palm trees. It's a sign. Maybe I need to get to Hawaii too. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna manifest that now that I just said that. So speaking of investors, we have a lot of connections with our portfolios there. I am constantly being asked by startup companies. I'm seeing a lot of struggles with getting investment in certain areas. We've talked about this before. I know things change so rapidly. With people that you've met, maybe let's say the last 6 months, what are investors looking to invest in with regards to any of these, networks or industries that we've talked about here? Is there anything in particular for 2024 that we need to be covering, or that we need to be keeping in mind as I'm meeting these companies needing an investment?
There are, yes. So I noticed that when I met with one of the VPs of Microsoft last year, towards the end of the year, they were actually talking about how their investments into ChatGPT actually kill a lot of the other startups that are trying to do AI and ML. So from an investment standpoint, we're actually not investing in any of the AI or ML technologies, only because Microsoft, candidly said, "Hey, look, if you invest in this type of technology, it is possible that we're going to co-develop it or develop it ourselves, and then potentially basically close your company because it's no longer needed. You can get it for free from Microsoft." So I think they had something like 1,000 businesses so far, and maybe that's a loose number. I'm not really too sure what their statistics came from, but they said roughly 1,000 companies so far that they've already duplicated and basically made irrelevant. So from that standpoint, you'll see a lot of the investors actually freezing money and stopping or slowing down their investments. And that's why, because we're starting to see the technology try to fade out or fade in and see which one's going to win and how it's going to work. goes back to the whole VHS and beta scenario. Beta had a better video image quality, but it was a shorter length than a VHS. So everyone just opted for VHS. It was easier. It just gave them the full video. So that said, there are a lot of differences and a lot of similarities, and we're just trying to wait, see how that shakes out. But everything else is pretty much open game still. So all the telecoms, all of the additional cybersecurity stuff, just stuff that deals specifically with like AI or ML, that's kind of like a moot point where we're standing on the sidelines. But everything else is pretty much open market still.
Okay, perfect. And I've seen, even I became an investor, I'm very new to the game, a couple years ago. There's one company in particular that is wanting to, more than likely, we're looking for like grant funding, angel investor, those types of things, but to upgrade the product. With companies or startup companies where maybe 5-6 years ago they started a solution or a product that is now needing upgrades, but they didn't get quite the funding on the front end to get those upgrades now. You don't want to, you start thinking about end of life or end of cycle, these types of things. What would your recommendation be for those types of companies? Because that's something that I'm seeing, and we're going to start seeing it, especially with the boomers retiring here in the next 10 years. We got 75 million boomers retiring. You're going to have companies starting to sell. Do we buy the companies? Do we upgrade the product? And those types of questions are going to start coming up. So what would your advice be with regards to that?
So that's a very complicated question.
I know.
To give a very simplistic answer, it depends. So it'll be on a case by case basis. It'll be like, there are a few different partners I work with that do a lot of acquisitions, but those are something where they have to have some type of track record, some type of monthly billable account, some type of long term income where you can see and you can forecast what the business is going to do. Because a lot of the times when you see some of these startups or you see some of these other companies, the revenue is generated based on the founders or based on the internal team that's already there, based on the relationships. And that's where some of the values get skewed. And that's where it's important to note where the value comes from and who actually generates revenue. Is it the business itself generating the revenue, or is the people in the business generating the sales to make the revenue for the company? And that's where the line and the delineation sometimes gets lost or confusing. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's tricky. So it's a case by case basis on that regard, and it's complicated and it depends. Even though that's a horrible answer, but that's still the truth, and the way it breaks down is it's going to depend on a case by case basis.
Right. I'd rather have an honest answer than fluff. So, and that's exactly why I asked you, because I know you give it to me straight. And it's interesting because I've got so many different levels of companies and professionals in my portfolio, everything from startup to enterprise, global, very successful. One of my right hands, quite literally, was Warren Buffett's right hand. She helped him during his Duracell and Gillette $600 million success, purchase of all that. So, seeing that spread and working with those levels of professionals and hearing their stories and everything, I have to innovate some of these, ideas and growth strategies and whatnot. And so as you meet people and anyone listening to this, I would encourage you, get in touch with me. If you have questions, or if you have a company that, like what he just talked about, mergers and acquisitions, or if you're needing investors, these conversations will not happen unless we start communicating. And I see so many people hide behind computers or emails, and they think they have to do like a corporate level communication style. And obviously sometimes you do if you're talking government related or governance and those types of things. But again, the prequel to the prequel to the prequel, it starts with that initial conversation, and doing these types of calls are a great way for us to just have a quick bit of information and get you to know us a little bit more and see how we can partner together. And I would say that to your portfolio as well. I'm really trying to meet very diverse people to add and get to know that have the it factor. So thank you for answering that question, because that helped a lot. I do have one more topic I want to talk to you about, and it's like the never ending. This is a song that never ends. Phishing attacks, Mr. CISO, CIO. Are you sick of talking about it yet?
It's been a never ending battle. It's like we haven't caught it yet. It's crazy.
Yep. What's been the worst one you've seen recently?
I was in a large Fortune 500 company, and their staff actually thought that they were They were traveling overseas. They didn't have their phone with them because they were on the plane, and they actually had infiltrated their Office 365 environment. So they already knew how to reroute all the communications, which was kind of sneaky and entertaining on their part.
Yeah.
Entertaining on the side fact of the way social engineering works. But it
Mhm.
was entertaining, and it was interesting in the way to see that they actually infiltrated their Office 365 environment, sat in their mail server, but didn't do anything until the time was right. So they're very opportunistic.
Mhm.
So then the CEO travels, and then when the CEO traveled, then they started sending the secretary messages from his email asking him like, "Hey, look, I need you to transfer blah blah blah. We're having complications, and we need to get some more stuff done." And lo and behold, they sent the transfer. I mean, it's coming from their email. It's authenticated. It works. So in those type of regards, you don't know, and we call that business email compromise. So it's one of those things where it's like anytime someone's asking you to transfer money, I always make it a point to call me. Like, and I tell people I work with, if someone says like, if I tell you that I want you to transfer money, first of all, I'm not going to tell you ever to transfer money unless I'm calling you. So if I'm not calling you, don't ever respond to anything that's saying transfer money. If it's important and it means that much to me, I will call you.
Right.
If I'm in another embassy or if I'm in another country, I will still call you. Don't don't rely strictly on an email. If it's important, I will call you, or someone that I'm with in my staff will call you. It won't be a random email, and that's
Just-
where
I
people
was
have
gonna say, just
problems.
out of curiosity, how long did it take them to realize that it happened?
Um, until they landed, so it took them roughly 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay. I figured.
Well, because it happened. I mean, they landed in about 12 hours, but what happened then after that point in time, the daylight, nighttime, daytime issue, and then back in their business day and their normal day, they got a hold of him and says, "Oh, I transferred blah 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 for you," and he's like, "What do you mean transfer blah blah for me?" I'm
And
like,
that's a lot. 24 hours is a long time when you're talking a lot of money to be unaccounted for, and then the time that it takes to recoup, to actually get, oh my gosh, sound the alarm, that type of thing. And then you got to contact everybody, that the powers that be that would be in charge of figuring out what happened exactly. So man, that's
it
tough.
it's it's crazy. I mean, we used to. I worked as an executive in a private company, and we got 10,000 pieces of spam per day that were phishing. And the CEO of that company would not let me turn on the normal filtering procedures or processes because they didn't want to take a chance of not having the email or not receiving an email and then it going to junk.
Oh,
They didn't let me turn on any of the things, so everything was straight vanilla. And we got hit 10,000 messages a day. I mean, we're
that's
global. It was
even
a
more
global
of a
company.
risk. Isn't that even
I
more of a risk?
I think I was there for maybe a week.
Yeah.
I think long enough for me to see what was going on and get out as quickly as possible. I ran for the door,
Yeah.
literally. It was one of those things where you look at it like you literally will not implement security because it could be an encumbrance to the business. Not understanding and then not rationalizing that the multiple pieces of spam that are getting through the firewall every day with the viruses and the malware, the Trojans, etc., and on top of the phishing attacks and the fake invoices, are not a separate risk in and of themselves. It became very dumbfounding to me, and it was one of those things where you had a bolt for the door. I didn't want to be on Channel 2 News and trying to give a deposition in front of Congress why whatever happened. It's
Right.
it's scary in that regard.
Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, are they still in business?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're the number one company for what they do. In fact, we actually lost three different large Fortune 100 companies financial data as a result of some of the negligence that they had. So it was it was an interesting time. I was there for a little bit, and I ran as quick as possible.
That's tough.
It
Well, and
was.
it was interesting. I was talking to my father, and oh, God love him. He's like the anti-technology person, typical parent, but um, he did it in front of me, and I was like, "Don't!" It's slow motion. Don't do that. Like one of those things. He's like,
Oh,
"Oh." I just got this random text. It says such and such. And I am in the middle. I said, if there's a link, don't click it. And he goes, I just clicked it. Oh, they realized what he did. Just it happens so easily. And, especially the people that are not, trained in some of these things or care about technology or think it's very serious. I'm still time and time blown away by how many people don't take this stuff seriously. It's at what point until it happens to you, probably. I'm sure there's a saying that goes along with that.
But yeah, until it's your money, until you don't have the ability to go buy food or pay your car, your mortgage or something like that, until it's your problem, then it's not going to be an issue. Yeah. But when it's somebody else's problem that you can just shuffle off, then it's not a big deal. But that's kind of why when you go to the Horizon Summit, you're able to bring your spouse, because your spouse should have the same knowledge and the education and have the same benefits that you do. You're both in the house. You're both like with my wife. If I touched her computer, which I don't, but if I were to do that, I would already know based on my role, my job, and the previous trainings of what to do and what not to do. Going and play Spotify or going to YouTube or going to some of these other things like Facebook or whatnot would not be something that you would deem as appropriate on a business computer.
Yep.
And that's something that's very critical to know. Most people don't have two people that are in the house that are IT savvy on that level. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's a little bit different.
Absolutely.
I think that's where it's important, and that's why we include everybody in what we do, because the risk for the executive is the same as the risk for the spouse. It affects the family the same. It also affects the business the same.
Let's talk a little bit about that with government. I just saw this happen recently, and I was fairly confident that they had been hacked. I have seen and talked to so many state and local municipalities, governments, things of this nature, where they are very understaffed with regards to IT. It's usually just the one IT guy, hardware wise. And these courtrooms or departments will, in the middle of trying to conduct very serious business, have virtual issues. Our Zoom's not working. Oh, the volume's not working. I mean, look at just us trying to get this set up here today. Prime example, okay? But now you're talking about people that aren't tech savvy, and they've got one or two IT guys running around like chickens with their heads cut off. I talked to somebody who he said that, now mind you, I think of his title, he was an IT director working under CIO, and he told me that he had no direct reports, but yet there was still a small team. And I said, oh, okay, well, so are you not training the team? He's like, no, I don't really have anything to do with the team. And I said, well, what does the team do? He goes, keep us afloat. I said, well, then what are you doing? He goes, my day is spent literally being the IT guy covering 20 different judges. He goes, this is not what I signed up for. And it is what it is. And, this person may or may not be looking for a new job. They're here or there. But I hear these types of stories, and it's like they don't do any type of training for the government departments because they're so inundated and low staffed. So then you're talking about the level of risk and the scaling that goes along with that. And you're talking legal documents here, jails, all of these, they're a prime target, and a lot of them use third-party outsourcing. I will hand it off to Grand Rapids, Michigan, hands down, one of the best communities I've met with recently. They're doing phenomenal things there, and they've done a really good job in that state overall with their state and local governments. And so there's my pitch for Michigan, even though I'm from Indiana and whatever, we're at war. But but it's just been really interesting going across the nation and talking to these different states, because you can tell the states that kind of really understand and the states that just don't care. And it's truly, unfortunately, going to impact the citizens, and the taxpayers. So with regards to that, I mean, do you see any changes on your end? Are you talking to anyone on your end that really discusses some of these things?
I have. We've actually had I've had a lot of conversations with folks in SLED, so state and local government education. And it was one of those things where we talked about Atlanta, and we talked about some of the other states where they had the ransomware attacks, and then they lost their data, and then they paid, an exorbitant amount to actually have their systems, brought back up to speed. I was at an event not too long ago, and I was actually speaking with the CEO of Southwest Airlines. And they told me about how much they cared and they valued their employees. And then it's one of those things where they say all their lip service until you ask them about, well, what did you compensate your employees for when you stranded them for 3 days during your technical outage?
Ding, 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 ding.
Because it's like that was caused by technical debt. That was a purpose, meaningful decision to negligently, avoid, upgrading the systems and due diligence. Now, granted, it was not this current CEO's fault. It was the previous CEO that actually did that. Actually, I had gotten banned from Twitter for actually just asking a simple question. I tagged Southwest. I tagged a few other people. I'm just like, what are you doing for your employees? Okay, great. You gave the customers, voucher to fly or whatever, reschedule for no booking fees or whatnot. But what did you do for all your employees that stranded? Because you only get paid from wheels up to wheels down. If you're like a stewardess or a pilot, wheels up to wheels down. So if you're sitting on the ground, if you're stranded in, someplace else because you can't get on a flight and you can't move and you can't do your acquisitions, like you're not getting paid. Like, did you take care of your employees? Like, okay, great, you're taking care of your customers, maybe. And I'm gonna use the maybe thing, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But the employees, what did you do for your employees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you keep telling me, like you literally said to my face, which I recorded, about how much you love your employees and you take care of your employees, and that's very important to you. But then, how did you take care of them when you had this crisis?
Absolutely.
And it really shows when everything hits the fan and like the entire company gets put on test or through the test or through the ringer. It's like what then what? Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of things that I see, and that's the kind of things I remember as I'm going through. I try to make sure that I remember what other people did or didn't do to make sure that that's not me in the future.
Absolutely.
Granted, not to say I don't repeat history, not to say that I don't repeat history, not to say that I don't make mistakes, but I tried to do my due diligence not to do the same things that somebody else did that were incorrect. Not to say that I don't, but I try to make a meaningful effort not to repeat the same mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting, and this is kind of going to get a little off of technology and cyber and everything we're talking about here, but it always comes full circle. I had somebody tell me a few weeks ago, well, we were asked to take a reduction on a rate, and I said, no. Said, we're not taking a reduction. Well, we have to take care of the shareholders and the stakeholders. And I said, we're the stakeholders as the employees. And maybe I can say that because one of the first organizations and firms that I worked for, we were an ESOP. So I kind of got in that mentality of being part owner. But when you switch to being an entrepreneur and you're kind of in that in-between phase where you're an innovator, you're not necessarily a company owner, but yet you're just as much at that same level in a lot of regards. Everything that you just talked about, if those employees are not taken care of, it's a law of physics. Your clients can only get taken care. Word gets around, and karma is a very real thing. And and I'm going to say this publicly, and I'm going to do it in a very classy way because I have not said anything about it yet. But here's an example of what I'm talking about. A company that my father just retired from. This man has worked his tail off. He blue collar organization. We're talking 12 to 14 hour days his whole life, physical labor. And he's beat down physically, and so excited for him to retire. It was a huge deal for him. And this organization is a multi-million-dollar company to the point where they're building a brand new plant that is opening this year. And for his retirement, they did nothing. And I mean nothing. And I was just blown away by that. His reaction coming home, he was so defeated, and I could tell how hurt he was. And of course, he's not going to talk about it because he reminds me of Sam Elliott, but the actor. But watching how defeated that can make an employee, and then in the same breath, with all this extra money that I know they have, they told their employees for their Christmas dinner that, you know what? We're going to cook the meat. You guys all bring the sides. That's how they're treating their employees. But hey, we need you to be here early and pump all these hours and get all these units done and da-da-da-da-da. And this is manufacturing we're talking about here. But when I hear about this type of stuff, especially I started in HR, I'm doing heavy business operations. And it always comes back to the employee. And I am so pro employee more often than not in a lot of situations. And so I just, especially with your investors and your network's probably like, get her off of there now, Charles. But we need to talk about it because it's a lot of these people don't get the chance to have conversations with people like you or people that are truly multimillionaires and are just so busy with their own lives and their own networks that they don't get to hear the actual real life stories. And so I like that you told that Southwest story because that just goes to prove aren't they in a deficit of like 10,000 pilots? Or 10,000 pilots are retiring in the next 10 years, and that's just all airlines. That's a good example. What a great way to recruit new pilots that want to come in by not even taking care of those, for the ones for those 3 days. And it might just be 3 days, but when you're living paycheck to paycheck, that's a huge deal, especially when you're away from your family. So,
especially when you're stranded.
Yes. Yeah. And uncomfortable and all these, it's a tough situation, but we kind of went on into a whole tangent here. I know you've got things coming up. I still do too. But this has been a really good conversation, and I knew it would be organic, and it wasn't, necessarily the prettiest, but it was the realist, and that's all I ever asked for. So I really appreciate your time.
Likewise, as do I. I always wanted to follow back up with you on the podcast that you're starting to do, that you're looking to host it. And can you reiterate a little bit more about the podcast that you guys are doing? I think that might be something that maybe we could film at like the Horizon Summit.
Oh, yes. Which one are you talking about? The Arcstone Global?
Well, the Arcstone Global, the Arcstone Global one might be interesting on the 20th, which is not part of our normal summit, is actually our investment thing.
Oh, okay. Well, and yes, that's something that we need to sidebar about because there's going to be a lot of opportunity there on both ends. As far as, are you talking about Cyber Bytes then?
Yes. For the full site, yeah.
Cyber Bytes, again, it's so early in the making, and I don't want to step up any NDAs or whatnot, but I am going to be hosted and producer, and I will be doing a lot of virtual promotion for their organization. And just to let everybody know, they have over 1,500 partners across the United States that would be very benefited from a nonprofit standpoint, as well as for-profit. And we all, especially when you're talking about like any type of funding, one of the things that Cyber Bytes does a great job of is they help get their partners grant opportunities. They do grant writing. They do a lot of really interesting projects to help leverage communities. And obviously they're working in that Virginia, DC market, Quantico area. But one of the ideas that I had from an innovation standpoint was to go virtual so we could start really building out, and getting things ready for potential global readiness and again, then feeding it back in. So yeah, I would love an opportunity to do that. And I think that especially from a government, military standpoint, nonprofit, education, and then investors, I think it'd be a really good infinity kind of work its way in and out type of flow process. And there's a lot of strategy that would go into that. But yes, I would love that very much.
That sounds like something I'd be interested in doing with you. I think that'd be fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh God. You better knock on wood. Caesar gonna be like, what did you get yourself into, Charles? I love it. But, awesome.
I mean, assuming it's a possibility. Yeah, I'd love to do it. I think that we do current virtual meetings now with the other investors, and I think that's something that's beneficial. Usually we always have more people that are willing to pitch than we have time for. So it's definitely a need. The need and the opportunity definitely exists. Definitely. Just a matter of trying to capitalize on all of it and trying to have more time in the day. And that just never seems to happen. So I think the more frequency.
Yeah. And something else that I have an idea, and I would love to even just share this with your network. I would love to do live podcasts on-prem with any of our portfolio partners. If they're having an event and they don't necessarily have a podcast, or they want to bring in a special cybersecurity podcast or something that would tap in with the federal grant market, there's just a lot of ways we could leverage that. And I know obviously Cyberbytes will have on-prem podcasting for their events, but what if we flipped it on the other side and we went to those partners? What a great networking thing that we could do. And so anyone that would be listening to this, I think, if you would like to help get some grant funding, any opportunities for lab usage with their American Cyber League, or even their Cyber Academy, ways that we could innovate and build out, I would be very interested in coming and visiting with you on-prem to any of your events. We could set something up and I would just be there kind of hosting on behalf of Cyberbytes, and we could partner those events. And I think that that would be a really good way to build bridges that haven't been built yet. And that's what I love to do.
Yeah, I think that's why the Horizon Summit might be the best thing for that. I mean, I definitely like that opportunity. If it was available, I would jump on it.
Yeah.
I think
awesome.
that'd be great. I think that'd be great for the executives and for the global Fortune 500 folks that attend, but it'd also be great for the startups that also attend for the investment side.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that because I think I'm supposed to be meeting with them later this week. So, well, more to come, but that's going to be checked on my list to talk to them about. So awesome. Well, I'm excited. This has been great.
Me too. It's been a very real conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And unscripted because,
I know.
I prepared a lot before we did this.
Yes, I know. I had so many notes as I'm reading from the website. Yeah, but I prefer it that way. Honestly, I've tried to do so many scripted speakings and public engagements that I always leave the ones where I wasn't scripted feeling the most confident about how I did, because it's just an energy versus the planning. And not to say that you shouldn't plan, don't misunderstand me, but at least for me, it goes a little bit better that way.
How can folks still get in contact with you?
You can get me at maggie.dillon@techfides.com or also on LinkedIn for sure. Those are probably the two best right now. And yeah, shoot me a connection invite and let's talk.
Cool. I will post those in the channel notes.
Okay, awesome. And then what about you? How do we get in touch with you?
Oh, great question. So they will see this probably on my LinkedIn channel, on my YouTube channel, the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't really use Threads, so there's not that one. But I think everything else is fair game.
Yeah, I'm not a Threads fan.
I get a whole bunch of random stuff that pop up on Threads, especially when I'm in meetings and like it's in my background. I'm like, oh, this is bad. So I don't normally ever use Threads, only because it's got so much random stuff that pops up that makes me look really bad. So I don't use Threads. I don't know how to follow. I don't know how you follow or how you do anything with it, but whatever the case may be, it's weird. It seems like it's like a long streaming, or like an RSS feed. Just keep streaming. No matter how many times I ban content or block content, I still get the same stuff to come back. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I give up.
Yeah.
I don't need this.
So don't follow you on Threads, but we can find this pretty much everywhere else.
Yes. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. I was going to say MySpace, but no, just kidding.
Can you hear my dog having an asthma attack in the background?
Only for a little bit. Like,
okay, good. God love it. My poor dog. This is the real live show right here. My poor dog has had asthma attacks the last 3 days, and every time I'm on a call, or if it's usually a video chat, that's when he starts hacking, and I'm like, mute. I tried to, but that one was not scripted. I didn't hear him getting up. So sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. We can't hear. I've got noise canceling on high. I'm using a noise canceling mic, so I think everything's good. I'm gonna drop the recording.
All right.
Or stop it anyway, so it can go process. I don't know how long it's gonna take to process with the